The majority of you use Instagram, I'm sure. Regardless of your age, if you have a large. Whether you follow or not, it's simply anything that is used by most people in society. The app reportedly has over 1 billion active users that I discovered in the scene. Roughly 300 followers at the moment. I reside in a small town, therefore that must be a lot for those in our immediate vicinity. We don't have many acquaintances outside of our areas. One evening while viewing a film, the vibrating screen on my phone said, "A girl named Holly began to follow me on Instagram." I decided to check out Instagram. Her profile, and she looked like this. Lovely blonde girl with roughly 5,000 followers. She had almost 50 photos. Were realistically apart from one another as far as the dates on which they were typically posted. When I have this many followers, I'll verify that they are, in fact. She actually received almost 600 likes on each photo. And several remarks from men. I presume that she was unaware of her departure. Drooling emoticons, hearts, and other. I'm kidding you, though, since I was going. Before I followed her, I browsed her page. She said, "Hey, I'm her back. Don't do this very often, but honestly, I thought you were incredibly cute. And I don't want to come across as a jerk. I've been informed that I'm gorgeous and fit. Appealing, and I've DM'd a few girls. I followed her back because I used to be her. And thought she was saying the same thing, I believe. You're adorable as well." After that, we had a lengthy discussion, but it was going incredibly well. We discussed fitness and the name of the high school we attended. It, to be honest, was fantastic. She gave me. We promptly started setting up after getting her number. Setting up a meeting for the following evening, which it was a Friday evening. We decided to meet in a well-known pub. For a few beers, I called lucky so. Friday evening as anxiety begins to set in. To begin, I would get ready for this brief encounter. I had never gone on a date directly from an Instagram direct message, but this woman was really beautiful. I traveled down to Lucky's and sat in the parking lot of my car, waiting for her to call or text me to let me know. Realize she was there at last. She did text me without telling me that she was. She stated there that her vehicle broke down and she required transportation. I needed to read it again a few times in order to be. I attempted to be sure I was reading it right. Phoning her, but she declined the. She texted me about her over the phone. Where? I took one more before responding. Taking a look at her Instagram account and she had friends, so it was undoubtedly real. Remarking on her while being tagged in her photos. Images, therefore I was aware that I was not receiving. I responded back on my way after being catfished, and I drove down the quiet side and left roads leading to the place she described. I succeeded, however it was an odd location for her vehicle broke down. A automobile was parked on the side of actually, the road along the woods. On both sides of this, there were woodlands. Road, the vehicle's hood was open, allowing it to. I tried calling to be her, but it didn't proceed. I checked my phone, and I parked my car here after realizing I had no bars. Automobile across the street and exited as I approached her vehicle. It was a Nissan Altima I in black. I became aware that I couldn't see inside it at. Every window was entirely shaded. I gave the window a little tap, black, and no one opened the door while I waited, so I strolled over to the front hood to check to see if she had made an effort to work on the motor. She didn't, as far as I could tell, and I was I lost patience and texted her to ask where she was. I walked back, ready to leave you. On the side of the vehicle, I observed the glass on the driver's side was now cracked. Down, I was positive they were all. Shoot, they contacted Holly's a minute ago. Name, understanding that there must be someone in the vehicle now. I took a few steps closer to have a look. Inside a hand that was extended from the glass, and they began to gesture. For me to follow her guidance and get closer. Finger, I realized, and my stomach dropped. I said it was unquestionably a man's hand. As I raced, he spoke in a weak voice and got lost. I hurried back to my vehicle and I could make the first right turn off the street. Due to my frequent looks in my rearview mirror, I finally noticed a vehicle following behind with its lights off. I turned off, thinking I should do the same. My car's lights and began producing as many twists as feasible, and ultimately, when I went home, I did lose the automobile. I was previously blocked by the profile, but I discovered later on that although the profile seemed authentic, the girl in the photos was compromised by someone. Eerie man, and I wasn't even this victim of whatever scheme the person had. I just hope that everyone else had the same luck as I. Music. I have 1,100 followers on Instagram. Followers, so I made it public. Anyone could visit my page and take a peek at my photos, like them, and leave a remark. Them so frequently that I'd receive people who didn't realize they liked my photos and making remarks against them, but one individual stood among the others. I recall his first comment on a picture I took. It was a beach photo with a friend of mine, so I had around 11 swimsuits on. Remarks regarding it, but one of them came from someone I didn't know. I clicked on 3 flaming emojis. There were 3 images on the man's profile. He was following 80 people. More than 200 individuals, including me 3. He took selfies for some of his photos, which didn't seem appropriate considering that he appeared to be in his 40s or 50s, but I wasn't. Mind, even if it's anticipated that to a certain degree, but following that picture had begun to develop into something where the men would just remark on each new. I submitted a photo, and one remark stated it was hot. To be honest, this one was a little creepier. However, 2 days after I posted the dude didn't comment on this in the next image. Instead, he messaged me directly. Hey, I just wanted to tell you, it said, that you're stunning. Despite the fact that I'm around 30 years older than. I replied, hee. Thank you, and I was shocked, as most people would have. He presumably disregarded it when he gave me it. I would do anything to meet a girl like you. 10 minutes later, I answered, thank you. Wishing he would remain silent, but he responded to me within a day or 2. I'll see you. I didn't respond to that one because I thought everything about the man was unsettling. However, I didn't block him since I reasoned that eliminated a free following that I hadn't heard from him prior to me publishing anew. This picture shows my sister Carol and me before our house. The man swiftly made a comment on the picture, stating that your sister and you are adorable. It was getting to be too much for me now, so I blocked him and deleted the comment. Music. Carol and I returned home later that day. I was by myself in the loo, completing I saw nails getting ready to go out. I saw an unfamiliar automobile come up in through the window in front of the house. But simply the front of the vehicle was hidden by the shrub separating our backyard from our neighbors. When the headlights went out, I didn't see. I noticed if anyone got out of the automobile. Only due to the fact that we are at a dead end. Blog in order to avoid receiving any via traffic. Just since I was on, I closed the blinds. My sister was in her room, on full show. When it was time for me to use her laptop, I didn't bother saying goodbye before leaving. Typically, we simply text one another that. I went to my car because we were heading out anyhow. Observing the enigmatic vehicle that identified as a Maxima, the tinted windows blended in with the shadows of the. It was impossible to see inside at night. I got into my automobile and made a three-point shot turn and proceeded down the one-way road. I traveled to the closest major road, which, gathering with friends at their home, I wouldn't describe it as a party, but a respectable. I cut myself from the amount of drinking that went on. I left a bit early because I knew I had to. I'll admit that I don't drive, but support this type of behavior in any way. When I was driving, I was somewhat inebriated. However, the travel home was only 5 minutes. When I arrived to my house, I saw that the Maxima remained parked in front of me. I had to find out whose automobile was that. I moved gently past it, but I parked, but I still couldn't see inside. After I arrived home, I texted a couple of my buddies. Safe before going on a stroll outside. I was admiring the car all the way up to my house. Parked in front of everything up to the. My keys were dropped at the front entrance. Which, for whatever reason, made me too afraid to stoop and search for. Rather than them, I pressed the doorbell like 5 times in order for my sister to respond. Swiftly, she never answered the door. However, so I had to get on their knees and search for the keys that actually fell directly onto the doormat. Went inside after opening the door, looking lovely. Quickly taking a final glance at the. Prior to closing the door, Maxima was. Though it was beyond late, my sister was typically still up this slide, so I feel lightheaded, but silently went up and down the stairs. The hallway to her door, and strangely, it was plenty open, but the lights. Perhaps she went out for a change. Entered the room covertly, and my pulse skipped a beat. A beat while my brain attempted to piece it together. The slight sound I could hear carried me away. It took some time to recognize that it was a whisper. My sister's voice could be heard whispering from the closet, which was partially open, and I observed my sister looking through the fracture. She looked disturbed and seemed to. I knelt by her, crying, and whispering, as you completely open the wardrobe. What's happening? She remained silent, but she simply continued to touch her lips with her finger. I pulled at her while she was telling me to keep quiet. Arm to yank her from the wardrobe, and I pushed the wardrobe while she was gone. Silently, this disclosed my sister's room once more, and someone who is clear as standing right in the middle of my day. I'm not sure if he was in his sister's room, facing us or not, but it made no difference. Because we both sobbed while running. I sensed the vibrations of the. We went with a man stomping close behind us. I went directly to the car and managed to lock it. The doors in the blink of an eye. Prior to the man who was pursuing us trying the door handle, realizing that it was locked, he began hammering the pane with his shoulder as my sister was. The issue is being made worse by yelling and screaming. Worse due to the severity of the circumstance. I was still able to make the link, the identical man who had Instagram stalking me, so I had to execute a 3-point turn while. To get as much as possible, I was honking the horn. As much as possible, the neighbor's attention. It seems to work because he entered his vehicle that proved to be the Maxima. And also made a 3-point turn at. We initially believed he was telling us, but rather, he booked it down and passed us. Another street that will never be seen at. We simply turned around at that moment and returned to the residence I referred to as our parents, followed by the cops. Were successful in determining how the man broke. He climbed in through a window upstairs. Climbed the ladder to the awning and gave it a boost. Up to the window, so I informed the police over his stalking of me on Instagram and somehow managed to locate my address at the time I uploaded my latest photograph with my sister that featured my home number. I attempted to assist them with by supplying the Instagram account of the man, but I visited the prohibited accounts. It was an empty part, indicating that the man has already removed his Instagram, thus even in the event that their Instagram's method of tracking deleted, it was irrelevant to users because I didn't. I hate to remember the man's username. Say it. Nothing could be done by the cops. And after realizing that, I've now set my Instagram to private and truly only accept follow-up requests from individuals. I'm also much more paranoid now. And cautious about sharing intimate images. Recently, I discovered something that has previously been very frightening me. Let me just dive into my discovery. Into some background information that makes the finding even more unsettling for the throughout the last few weeks on a number of times when attempting to sleep. Doing anything in my room or on my bed. At night, when a light was on, would hear a single, quiet, but noticeable tap on my window that I almost don't want to call a tap. As none of the noises actually. It sounded like an intended tap. More akin to an accident. Rubbing up against or scraping the glass very quickly. I initially believed it was merely insects flying into the window. As the same noise continued to occur I do this at least twice or 3 times a week. Began to become alarmed by it, so I informed my father, who naturally informed me. Nothing, most likely just bugs like I first believed that nothing occurred. Over many evenings, but then I received a text from someone who isn't really a buddy, but I once took a lesson with a guy who, in some way, my co-heirs gave him. He said, "Hey, I'm not sure if I have my number. You recall me from our previous class? I just wanted to share with you, together." Regarding this, I discovered it by accident, and if you don't know about it, that's quite unsettling. And then he included a link to the message's bottom. When I pressed it, I was directed to an JP was the name of the Instagram page. My initials were those, but they weren't official. That wasn't my first observation. My initial observation was my profile picture. And the 45 images that were uploaded to. I was the only one in the account. Enjoy the photos I took, even though they were all honest, that is to say, photos that I had no idea were taken. Some featured me at the beach, while others were of me seated in my vehicle, but the more recent, some of them showed me in even stranger situations. My backyard, followed by the most awful ones, were the latest, and there were images of me in my chamber, captured from the exterior of my. I am sitting on my bed in the window, completing my schoolwork or sending texts to other people. Standing alongside one of me and that pants, I felt ill, and I wanted to cry. And hurling up every image that has. Some had at least 2 or 3 likes. Remarks, but none that highlight how incorrect this is. Comments were made, urging it with phrases like, "Go for What I'd do if I could get my hands on her. The picture captions. All of them resembled the love of today, my wife, or she visited the beach. Or I simply enjoy observing her mouth squirming as a tear fell down my cheek. I can't even begin to explain how concerned I was. The feelings I was experiencing, followed by another sound, came from the window. The sound of an accidental scratch or tab, after which it clicked, making sense. Now that I've connected the dots, I just snapped, I shouted, and I lost it. I never screamed so loudly before. My dad rushed in, arms wide spread, to give me a hug and ask me what's wrong. Showed him the Instagram account and described the window taps. It's a stretch to say that I was a mess and had trouble speaking coherently. My father's face changed from kind to he hurried from startled to furious. Outside, yelling and creating a commotion in search of the stalker. The neighbors then entered the house and dialed the police. Provided the Instagram account to the police and asked that they follow it as soon as potentially. Law enforcement submitted the request to. By the time it arrived, Instagram, although the account was removed, it didn't issue because Instagram managed to retrieve the data, and the utilization was linked to a vintage iPod Touch. Regretfully, the device could not be located. Either it was destroyed, or it's. My dad noticed that Wi-Fi was permanently off. How damaged I was, and he intends to removing us from the residence inside the. Fortunately, nothing new has emerged this month. Sounds, but I've also been careful to maintain all of my blind shots around the clock and always make. I'm positive I'm not being followed while I drive. All I could come up with to tell everyone is, keep your Instagram account private at all times. Pay attention to your surroundings.